Welcome. Thanks for tuning in. I know it's been a couple of weeks that we haven't gotten together. We could say it's COVID related, between some of us getting COVID, the director, the photographer, and then myself, and shots and vaccines. But we're back today, and it's good to have you. So we are in Parshas Mishpatim, Ve'ela HaMishpatim, and during many years, this might even be Parsha Shkalim very often, but since we have two others, obviously that's going to be delayed like a month, so we have time to talk about that. But the truth is, when you think about Mishpatim, it seems to be a real continuation from last week's Parsha of Parshas Yisroi. In fact, in this week's Parsha, towards the end of the Parsha, when it talks about Ve'el Moshe Amad, the Rebbeinu Shalom tells Moshe, Alei el Hashem, come up on to Hashem. So Rashi learns that this is taking place before the Aseres HaDibros. So we're really hearkening back to what was discussed in Parshas Yisroi before Matan Torah, on day 4 before Matan Torah. But the Ramban and many of the other Rishonim say, no, these Parshias are in the exact order that they took place. So they got the Aseres HaDibros, and right after they got the Aseres HaDibros, Moshe says to them, you have seen that I can talk to you. That's the end of Parshas Yisroi. Therefore, don't do any Avodah Zarah. And if you build a Mizbeach. And then the next thing is this Parsha, Ve'ela HaMishpatim, and everything that we've learned up until now. Now, let's think about this. If we understand it the way the Ramban understands it, it just tells us something that seems to be so crucial to understanding what Torah means. Because, Aseres HaDibros, we understand that, right? I mean, it's the key to everything. All of Torah is included in the Aseres HaDibros, all Torah mitzvahs, many of the Sfarim calculate how all of the Torah mitzvahs fit into one of the Aseres HaDibros and on. So it's like crucial, fundamental, the Aseres HaDibros, the 10 Commandments. That's the foundation on which everything is built. But according, and then there are other things, Eila Mishpatim, right, which is very unique and very specific to situations that would arise. I mean, how many of us in our lifetime will deal with half of those Mishpatim that are mentioned here? Right? I haven't had an Eved Ivri, you haven't had an Eved Ivri. That's the first one of the Eila Mishpatim. Disputes with a shomer, somebody who's watching something for you. I never had that dispute with anybody yet. Not a shem mechinam, not a shem mesachan, right? So it's very specific. Yet, the way the Ramban learns, this is exactly how the Torah was given. Aseres HaDibros, Mizbeach Avonim, and then Eila HaMishpatim. And after that, right after the Mishpatim were given and everything that we learned in this week's Parsha, Moshe now goes up to the Rebbeinu Shalom, right? And the Rebbeinu Shalom tells Moshe, come up. But before he comes up, Vayovei Moshe v'yasapil ha'am kol divrei Hashem. Moshe tells the Bnei Yisrael es kol divrei Hashem, which is the end of Parshas Yisroi, the end after the Aseres HaDibros, ve'es kol ha'mishpatim, and he tells the Jews all of these mishpatim that we've just learned now, and he presents it to them. This is all happening on the same day that they get the Aseres HaDibros later in the day. And Vayan kol ha'am kol echad. And the people say, once again, yes, we're still committed. In other words, we just committed a couple of days, we're still committed. So Vayichtav Moshe as divrei Hashem. Moshe records it, he writes this all down. And then the next day, Vayashkem ba'boika, and the bris, the covenant, is made with Klal Yisrael. So the covenant, the bris, the commitment to each other is over the Aseres HaDibros and these Mishpatim. It's just eye-opening. It tells us how crucial of a part of Torah that is, how we relate to each other, and having a system that covers everything that we can go through in our lifetime, knowing that Torah is all-inclusive. But I really want to focus on one other point, and I'll make it brief. So Moshe Rabbeinu now comes, whether this is happening like Rashi before Matan Torah, or happening before the Aseres HaDibros, or it's happening right after the Aseres HaDibros. But over here in this week's Parsha is the first time that we hear those famous words of Naseh v'nishma, right? Because like I said in Shul last week, if you ask a Jew, Kabbalah HaTorah, Matan Torah, what will they say back? Naseh v'nishma. Yet Naseh v'Nishma is not even mentioned in reference to that event in Parshas Yisro. It first becomes a reality here. Now, either according to Rashi, it's happening before, but according to the Ramban and other Rishonim, Naseh v'Nishma did not happen until after they got the Aseres HaDibros. So it's something to think about. Like we say, Haloi Doverhu, it's something very interesting. They said Naseh, but they didn't say Naseh v'Nishma. Now, we know that when the Jews said Naseh v'Nishma, came down 2 malachim for every Jew and gave every Jew a crown, one for Naseh and one for Nishma. Because there's 2 things that happened here. They said Naseh before Nishma, we will do and we will listen, so that they were willing to commit, like we say, sight unseen, without reading the document, without knowing any of the particulars. They had such a trust and faith and love for the Rebbeinu Shalom that he would never, ever ask them to do something which was not in their best interest, and therefore they were willing to commit to that. And that was the great commitment of Naseh before Nishma. And for that, you get a crown. I'm all into the crown. But what's the second crown for? You ever think about that? What's the second crown for? What's the Nishma? Right? Naseh v'Nishma, yeah, we will do it. We will do it even before we hear it. Okay, so you get a crown for that you're willing to commit before you hear it. That's what Naseh v'Nishma means. So why get another crown for Nishma? What did Nishma bring to the table? Obviously, you're committed to doing it, and you must hear it. So, I was thinking that, Naseh is not just that we're so committed even without knowing it, we'll do it. Naseh was really their understanding that Rebbeinu Shalom, we're so committed to you, we want to do what you want us to do, not what we want to do. Right? And it's not about what we want. And our demonstration of that it's not about what we want is Naseh. We're just going to do it without understanding it. Because the minute we understand it, then we do it because we want to do it. Because, this makes sense. I'm going to do it. Oh, you're right. It's a great idea. But if I want to show you that it's nothing to do with what I want, it's only what you want, then I do it without thinking. What's the best way to protect that I should do it without thinking? I should do it only for you and not for me. The best way is to say, I don't even want to know why. Because the minute I know why, and it's logical and it makes sense to me, then every time I do the mitzvah because, hey, this is the right thing to do. So I'm no longer doing it as a demonstration and an act of love and commitment and dedication. I'm doing it because it makes sense to me. So if I want to protect the avodah known as Naseh, which is the avodah of doing it only because you said so, Rabbi Shalom, then I would say, if you start to tell me, let me tell you what this is all about. I said, don't tell me. I don't want to know. Because if I know, then I won't be able to separate. So really, Klal Yisrael, when they said it, they said Naseh. They didn't say Nishma. They wanted only Naseh. But then they came and they said, you know what? Rabbi Shalom, if it's your ratzon, if it's something that you want and that you hold is good, our love for you says we want to know why it's good. We want to delve into it, even though we might end up losing some of that Naseh that we committed to without knowing. But our love for you, our love for the Torah, our love for the depth of Torah, we want to sacrifice the Naseh for the Nishma. So that's why there were 2 crowns. First for saying Naseh, which means we understand the highest madregas to do the avodah of the Rebbeinu Shalom, not because it's our understanding, not because we understand it, but only because you said so. And the way to protect that is not to hear the depth of it. But they came back and they said Nishma. We love it so much that we want to even hear the depth, even if we might lose a little bit on the Naseh. And so they got 2 crowns. My friends, thanks for listening. I know it was a little bit long today, but we didn't do a bunch of weeks, so you owe me, and I owe you. Let's be Zaychem, it's Hashem, to get back those 2 crowns of Naseh and Nishma by committing ourselves to doing the mitzvahs, sight unseen, as if we have no knowledge, to make ourselves arumim bedas. But at the same time, let's delve into Torah and get the knowledge and the beauty and the chachma from which this world was created. Have a good Shabbos.